my perception early on was that public speaking was innate. It was something you're either born with or you'll never have.
Right.
But what I came to realize by going to the Toastmasters Club every single week was that public speaking is just a skill, the same way going to the gym is, or running is, or writing or reading. And I went week after week, session after session, made a lot of mistakes, was a lot of stuttering, there's a lot of umming and ahhing. But my confidence grew every week, and the peer group that was supporting me, because it's a very, very supportive network, was incredible. And fast forward 9 months, I was actually in China working for Huawei at the time, and I was actually invited to give a speech at the British Embassy in Beijing. And it almost felt surreal when I got up to that moment, because just 9 months prior to that, you'd never catch me on a stage.
Right.
Just by developing those skills and showing up week after week and making mistakes and learning from them, and having mentors was incredible. And the transformation was literally the springboard for my public speaking career.
Listen to the vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very privileged to have Mr. Mohammed Kasaji here with me. He is a life coach masquerading as a career coach. And we're going to get to know him, and hopefully he can inspire you or motivate you. We're just going to have a great conversation and see where it goes. So, Mohammed, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure thing, Kyle. And it's great to be here, and thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Where to start? I live in a place called Walsall, which is just north of Birmingham in the UK. I've lived here for the majority of my life, bar some episodes elsewhere. And I spend my time nowadays helping people find passion, purpose in their lives, which is something that I struggled with for a long time before I got into the field of career coaching.
What motivated you to steer in that direction?
Great question, Kyle. I think for a long time, my life was kind of almost planned out for me. I come from a very traditional, conservative Asian household based in the UK, and it was the conventional route of going through school and then going through university, and then finding a profession or finding my craft. When I came out of university, I had two options. Even though I studied a chemistry degree, I didn't really want to go into chemistry as a field. So my two options were education or sales. I love the idea of education, which was all to do with helping people and making an impact. At the same time, I love the idea of sales as a people person and making money. And I met someone who later became my wife as I finished university, and so money was a priority. So I chose sales as my initial route of call. And I had the privilege of having a wonderful sales career and working for some great companies with some great people. I think there gets a point in life where we all come to realize that more money than a certain X amount that pays the bills and a bit left over and fulfills our hobbies doesn't really make us any happier. And when I hit that moment, I knew that my life needed more meaning and more direction. And that urge to find something that helped people that was there from university, it was never realized, came to fruition. And I made the transition into career coaching after a great career in sales, and haven't looked back since.
Is your wife like your greatest inspiration in your life?
Mm-hmm. I've got a lot of inspirations. I would say my wife is certainly one of them. My wife is a very principled person, I would say. It's all not doing things for the sake of doing things, doing things with intention, with meaning. And that's something that's really resonated with me. And the idea of working in a job for the sake of a job or for the sake of a paycheck didn't really sit right with my principles. And it lost its meaning in some regards, even though it was a wonderful company with wonderful people. And that inspiration I certainly drew from her, that's for sure.
It's awesome. My wife has been a great inspiration in my life. She's actually helped me get back on my spiritual journey. And I used to preach, and for about 5 years I was a preacher, and I really enjoyed it. And then some situations came up where I kind of got mad at God, and it's not God's fault. It's just life in general. Lost my dad, my brother, and my best friend. They ended their lives, and it was in a very short period of time. And then I just went away from God, even though he was always there with me. I wasn't, who I was supposed to be. And then my wife just, 10 years of looking, found the perfect woman, and she's been everything to me. Disease that took over my body, she could have left, but she stuck by my side. And it's great to hear that you have a woman that's an inspiration to you. But moving on, we kind of live in a time where people just they blame everything around them. They blame their situations. They blame other people. It's just a kind of a victim society. And I've always been one to say, we may come across difficult times, but that shouldn't define who we are. We should take responsibility for our own lives. Is that kind of your principle?
Completely. I think we can't control what happens to us.
Mm-hmm.
We can certainly control how we react to it and how we shape those experiences. I mean, very, very similar to yourself and everything that you've been through. If a series of calamities or negative things happen to us, we can blame God, we can blame life,
Mm-hmm.
or we can see it as a learning opportunity or a growth opportunity. Of course, a lot easier to say in hindsight than it is at the time.
Right.
But I think taking that personal ownership and accountability and focusing on the things that we can control and we can influence and how we think about situations is really, really, really important in my opinion.
Yeah. I'm not, a big fan of Louis Farrakhan, but I heard one of his speeches where he was saying, stop blaming your parents and stop blaming the schools, and every situation you get into should be a learning experience, and you should take what you've learned and not continually make the same mistakes. Move forward, and I think that is the base principle of being successful. Learn from whatever's going on. I mean, I'm disabled, but instead of just laying on a couch watching television, I found this, and this has kind of been my career. This is what I want to do. But I go through a lot of difficult times where I feel like I'm a burden to my family because I can't pick things up and I can't do the things that I used to do. If I was to come to you, how would you help me to be successful?
Mm-hmm. I'm reminded from your words of one of my favorite books, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and how Stephen Covey talks about being kind of proactive rather than reactive in one's life and in one's situation. Certain illnesses may debilitate us in some ways, but I think there's always possibilities to enable us in other ways. And I guess the question I would ask is, what opportunities do you see to really benefit people's lives as a result of the situation that you're in?
Well, the way I see it is this has opened up doors for me because I can do this full time. And it's the things that I've been through. I mean, I was molested as a child. I was picked on quite a bit growing up, and I lost a lot of self-confidence, and I've found some confidence doing this. I want to be able to inspire others so they don't have to feel that way, because I know there's folks that have been through the same thing or even worse than I have, and they need to be inspired to know there's hope.
Precisely. I mean, as a career coach, as a life coach, as a coach, whatever you want to call it, I think what I've found is that the clients that I work with are just versions of me in some regard, i.e., they're going through a challenge or a life circumstance that I once faced, and I was able to overcome it. And simply hearing my story gives them hope that a difficult situation that they're in is one that they're able to come out to. And I can't help but think about all the individuals who are in a situation or an experience that is very similar to yours, who perhaps haven't figured a way to navigate that and get out of that, or shape it into a productive experience, and might well benefit from hearing your story, hearing your advice, hearing your principles, and who knows how their life can change as a result of that.
Can you talk about your biggest hurdles in life?
Mm-hmm. I would say if we tie in some of the things we've spoken about already, such as kind of marriage and proactive versus reactive thinking. So when I came out of university, I had a first-class degree. I had a year of sales experience, which is the career that I wanted to go into. So naturally thinking, I thought I was going to fly into a job. So, we were proceeding ahead with conversations with both families about marriage, and so on and so forth. And they were going really, really well. And we even set, in fact, a wedding date. Now that date was quite short from the time after university, but at the time I was so confident that I was going to get a job that I didn't really pay it thought. In fact, a week before we agreed on the date, I had 4 final stage interviews lined up. And, as a no-brainer, with my credentials and my background, I thought this is going to be easy. But as it came to be, all 4 of those interviews didn't go to plan. And now I was stuck. I had 4 months to find a job. Otherwise, I'll be showing up on my wedding day when people ask me what I do or how I'm going to support my wife to be. I'd have no answer to them. So I really had to take life and matters into my own hands. So I was applying through the conventional routes, through applying for jobs and going through agencies, and it wasn't really working for me. And time was ticking. I was getting more and more stressed. I wasn't getting the responses that I wanted. And I thought, how can I be a lot more proactive with how I do things rather than reactive?
Right.
I actually took the step to find a directory of every medical company in the UK. Medical sales was what I wanted to go into. And one by one, I just started calling them up one by one, telling them my story and just inviting them for conversations. I was doing call after call and call after call, and I wasn't getting anywhere. And I'll remember it very well. It was number 53 on the list. I managed to find the personal phone number of a national sales director of a medical sales company. And he answered the phone. He was on holiday at the time, still took my call. And even though he lived in a different part of the country to me, it just so happened that he was coming to Birmingham, which is, of course, where I am, a couple of weeks later. So we set a date, met for a coffee, and one thing led to another. And as a result of the conversations and the impact that I was able to have, it eventually resulted in a job, which was terrific, which is absolutely terrific. You can imagine the relief that I was feeling as I was going through that process, thinking I'm going to show up on my wedding day with no job and no career prospects, and being able to take matters into my own hands to create a job opportunity. That was a wonderful experience for me, and definitely showed me the power of resilience.
Now, knowing that you had that timeline and the urgency, it kind of seems like you didn't really just settle for anything. Was that kind of your mindset, or did you like, I just got to find something?
It definitely had to be the right opportunity, that's for sure. Because the last thing I would have wanted was to be settled in with my wife in a new home and so on and so forth. And she was relocating from a different part of the country, so naturally it wouldn't be easy to find a job straight away. The last thing I'd want is to go in and then have to leave again because it didn't culturally align with my values or what I needed. So there was a relative selection to the companies that I was calling and the people that I was engaging with, and it just happened to be a right fit, which was especially important because otherwise that could have even caused further stresses if we were entrenched into life together and I didn't have a job. It certainly was something within my control.
Well, during my marriage, I just kind of took jobs here and there. Was never happy, and finally I ended up working for the city where I live and working public works, so water department, sewer department, kind of a combination in the department I was in. I kind of enjoyed it. There were times I hated it, but so many of us kind of just settle for anything just to have a job. But how important is it to not settle, not just take anything?
Completely, especially within kind of public service departments and certain job fields. The perception is about job security, and people perceive job security to be, I've got a job for life there. I think especially in this day and age, I don't think that is what job security is. job security isn't simply the perception that a particular industry or a particular company will hold on for you forever. I think job security comes from the value that you bring to an organization and the value you bring to the people in it. And naturally speaking, the majority of people who contribute the most value are passionate about what they do. So if we can't follow that train of thought, if you aren't passionate and excited or interested in what you're doing, naturally you're not going to go above and beyond to do your job well in the same way that others might. And if that's not the case, you're not going to be seen as valuable. And if times are tough, the people they cut first are the ones that offer the least value.
Do you have clients that so they have family and friends that kind of push that, oh no, don't try to go out and venture and do something that you want to do, stick with what you're doing because there is security there? I had a relative that when I said I was going to move, like, no, you don't want to move, you find where you're at and where you're moving to, it's too expensive, and just all these excuses. But I felt like where I was living, where I grew up, was kind of holding me down. And I ended up moving somewhere where there's a lot of nature. You know, I'm 10 minutes from the river, about 20 minutes I can make it to the lake. And I mean, we have rabbits that come into our yard and they dig holes and have their babies, and you know, all kinds of birds, and you see, you know, deer and all kinds of other animals around here. And it's, I love being near nature. But do you run across those clients that have those negative people always saying, don't venture out and try something new?
Completely. I think naturally our conditioning programs us to think about survival. But what's really important for clients is to thrive, not just survive, kind of like yourself. And most of the time, those challenges occur with individuals because they don't know what's possible, because they haven't seen what's possible from others. And more importantly, their social network, their friends, their family haven't seen what's possible either. And I think what's really key with all of this is that most people assume that if you want to make a change in your life, or I've got a passion I'm really interested in, they assume that it's as simple as quit your job today and start your passion and make money from it or have a life around it tomorrow. Whereas that's not the case. And I think the biggest impact I have on my clients is helping them to see that change can very much be an incremental process. For example, my journey to becoming a career coach and then a full-time business owner wasn't as simple as leaving my job one day and burning all my bridges and then starting a business tomorrow. I was actually running and operating my business alongside my company role for nearly 2 years. And in that time, I was able to serve my clients in a way that wasn't necessarily attached to the money. I wasn't looking over my shoulder about paying the bills for my business, so I could be 100% authentic and genuine with the engagement that I had. And once the business was at a point where it was self-sustaining, profitable, with additional money left over for me to cover all of my expenses, that was the time that I decided to leave. And that literally was, you know, 2.5-year process, all in all, end to end, if we include everything. So reality is that if we think of it incrementally, it can give us a lot more confidence, but most people don't think that way. Most people think here today, gone tomorrow, start the day after, and that's probably where a lot of people get stuck.
I was fortunate enough that I found a job up here, and I had enough time with the city that I could retire. So I had some kind of money coming in, and it was a few months before we were able to actually move. But then I got right back into public works up here, and you know, the disease kind of started taking over and I couldn't work anymore. So I had to retire again. I guess it's kind of a cheat for me because I'm on disability, so it's made it possible for me to do this. But I'm with you, you know, don't burn your bridges without, you know, some kind of, you know, plan in place, and, you know, being successful like you are. I think folks can do it. You know, don't do like on The Office where the guy just quit his job to go be a singer and he didn't have any real income. You know, you need to take it slowly but you can do it. You can do it, definitely.
Completely. Office is an amazing show, by the way. One of my favorites. Love it.
Yeah, that's mine too. I've
Thank
seen it about 14, 15 times all the way through.
Wow, wow. I've watched it 3 times, and it's funny. It's funny what you pick up on that you missed previously, isn't it? In the show, it's incredible. It's so good. But you're completely right there. You can't burn bridges, and it's a lot more dangerous, a lot more threatening to your livelihood if change is immediate. But if we take things gradually and break it down into steps, it's probably a lot more achievable than most people think.
Yeah, you have to take the chance and do something that you love, or I think you'll be miserable all your life. You gotta at least try. You know? And speaking of, I mean, I'm trying my best to make this successful, and I've finally gotten to the point of monetization. But I mean, I don't have this giant following. I'm not making that much money. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I take advice from everybody that I talk to that comes on my show to try to improve things, and people that are successful. I don't know what it is that's holding me back. Would you be able to help me to figure it out?
Completely. Where would you like your life and your business to be if it was in the uttermost successful place? What does success actually mean to you relative to your podcast and to your life, Kyle?
Well, I mean, I do want to make money. Don't get me wrong. That is very important. I want to get to a point where I'm not relying on the government to help me make my way. I want to make my own money, but success to me has been when someone sends a message and says thank you, the person that you had on helped me a lot, or thank you for what you're doing, please keep doing it. When somebody has, I've done what I've set out to do, to inspire someone and to give them hope, that's success. And to be able to spread it out to a larger audience, that's kind of my feeling of success, real success.
And what would you say has been your biggest challenge in making that happen?
Oh, I tell you what, the like getting the keywords and the hashtags and all those things right, and being able to figure out when's the best time to upload. I have an extension to YouTube that tells me when my audience is watching my videos. Well, one week it is a certain time, the next week it's another time. So I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to figure out something in between, or what do I do?
It's really fitting that we discussed what we did at the start of this conversation, because we talked about being proactive versus reactive. And at the moment, I think relying on the mercy of algorithms and technology can be seen as a very reactive way of perhaps growing your business. What if we flipped it completely 180 and we decided to take a proactive approach to growing the reach and the engagement that your podcast has? How would you approach things differently if that was the case?
That's where I'm kind of stuck. I don't know what to do. I try to take the advice that I get and make it happen, but I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Honestly, I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
When I kind of think of your situation, I think of the fact that the thing that rewards you the most is the benefit that it has to your audience. The money itself isn't necessarily of importance to you, but it's the value. And when I think of money, I think of money as nothing more than a compensation someone provides for the value that you give them, or the value that they perceive whatever you have is. And I think two things really spring to mind. I think number one is, what if the podcast wasn't the primary vehicle in which money was created? what if the podcast facilitated something else which was able to create wealth for you?
It'd be awesome if I could figure out what that was.
We spoke right at the beginning of the conversation about how the situation that you're in, the life journeys that you've been through, the life journeys that you've overcome. I'm wondering how many people out there are in a situation or position who would love to be in the position that you are now, who are crying out to be able to navigate the challenging circumstances they're in and see light at the end of the tunnel. I wonder how many people out there who aren't achieving their full potential because they're weighed down by the circumstances that are going on in their life, whether it would be physical, mental, social, or beyond. What if this podcast was the medium in which we were able to connect and engage with people who are going through those challenges? And what if you were able to use that as a springboard to impact them in some way?
That would be awesome. If I knew that I could maybe be a motivational speaker or something, I would love to do that. The only thing that would be holding me back is I feel like I'd need a bigger following for it to make it seem like I'm making a difference.
How much do you know about coaching as a whole, or a profession or a trade?
I mean, I'm not professionally trained by any means, but I kind of get the gist of what other people are doing. And I feel like I could do it.
Coaching is nothing more than one person creating the space for another person to understand the difference between where they are and where they want to be. Coaching in its purest form is completely non-directional, and I know I haven't been completely non-directional in here, but in the purest sense, the coach doesn't decide what the outcome is, the client does, and just creating that space can work wonders. I mean, there's a really impactful coach called Michael Neal, and he uses the analogy of if you took a person who was experiencing life challenges and you invited them to go and speak to a lamppost every Monday at 8 p.m. for an hour, their life would transform within a series of weeks or months.
Oh, wow.
Now imagine that lamppost was replaced by a person with insight and knowledge about their own life and experience. Imagine how much more transformative that would be to someone who's been through some of the challenges that you once faced.
Would be something.
Doesn't necessarily require training, which can be a bad thing or a good thing, but ultimately it doesn't take training to start. It takes coaching to start, and that's it. And if you're curious to know how I started, I literally started one client at a time. I didn't use social media. I didn't do any sort of advertising when I began. I simply reached out to people within my network and their network, listened to the problems and challenges that I had. And if there was a problem or challenge that I had experience of working with, I invited them to a conversation, and then another conversation and another conversation. If we fast forward to the present day, typically every client that I work with refers between 3 to 4 clients back within a 12-month period. And that in itself creates a self-sustaining business that isn't dependent on social media or algorithms or followings. It's not a quick method by any means, but it's certainly an effective one.
Yeah, I've kind of relied on social media, but I'm not good at that either. I've tried doing what people would tell me to change this or change that, and I would go and I would do exactly what they told me to do. And it's not, I mean, well, Facebook, I'm doing pretty good. I have a pretty good network going there, but the rest of my social media is lousy. And I don't know, it just seems like that's kind of the way to get yourself out there now. But I guess you're saying more of word of mouth and just going out and talking to people.
I think social media can be good, can be constructive, but from what I'm hearing, it doesn't feel organic to you. Whereas one thing I can say for certainty, well, three things that I can say for certainty is you're an expert speaker, you're an expert listener, and you're an expert in your own life experience. And for me, that already makes you a lot more effective than some of the coaches I know out there.
My biggest challenge too, if I get up and I was to do public speaking, as much as I've worked on it, I still stutter. And I mean, I don't feel like it's holding me back per se, but it may be a challenge getting up and talking in front of people.
You're public speaking now with no challenges.
You'll catch it every once in a while. It's like my brain is working faster than my mouth. And I can't keep up, you know.
I think that shouldn't stop you from trying, and I think ultimately confidence is built from competence and nothing else. And the only way to get through that, like with every other skill, is by the development. I mean, I myself, I used to be terrified of public speaking a long time ago, as early as 2017. But there was a few life circumstances which really motivated me to want to make a change and really improve the areas of my life that needed to work. So I joined Toastmasters, which you may be familiar with in the US. There's a couple of hundred clubs within the UK, and I'm sure many, many more in the US. And it was a space for me to improve my public speaking. And my perception early on was that public speaking was innate. It was something you're either born with or you'll never have.
Right.
But what I came to realize by going to the Toastmasters Club every single week was that public speaking is just a skill, the same way going to the gym is, or running is, or writing or reading. And I went week after week, session after session, made a lot of mistakes, was a lot of stuttering, there's a lot of umming and ahhing. But my confidence grew every week, and the peer group that was supporting me, because it's a very, very supportive network, was incredible. And fast forward 9 months, I was actually in China working for Huawei at the time, and I was actually invited to give a speech at the British Embassy in Beijing. And it almost felt surreal when I got up to that moment, because just 9 months prior to that, you'd never catch me on a stage. But just by developing those skills and showing up week after week and making mistakes and learning from them and having mentors was incredible. And the transformation was literally the springboard for my public speaking career.
Yeah, I have no problem getting up in front of people and talking. I guess you'd say I have no shame. I don't know. It's became just kind of second nature now. I like when I do these, I have no problem talking to people. I go to the grocery store, or, wherever out in public, I can start a conversation with anybody. And getting up in front of others, it doesn't bother me at all. Actually, did a pilot for a TV show, and I mean, it was a fun experience. I had no problem in front of the camera. So anything kind of goes with me. So you said
nothing stopping you?
I mean, other than, I have a hard time like walking, and I can't sit for a long time. So you see me, I have to move quite a bit because I stay in one position too long. The pain gets real bad. And that's the only thing else other than stuttering that I'd feel would be holding me back.
You may well think that it holds you back, but it certainly wouldn't hold back an organizer of an event or someone from having you and accommodating you, that's for sure.
Yeah, they'd have to have a chair out there. I have to get up every once in a while and move around, but I can't move around for too long because that starts hurting. It's a catch-22, I guess, is the saying.
I think it was Roy Disney who says when the value is clear, decisions are easy. And I think a similar sort of principle would apply for yourself. I'm sure many, many people, whether it be individuals, attendees, or organizers of events, will be very, very interested in what you have to say about certain topics. That's for sure. And if that's the case, then they'll be more than accommodating, because the most important thing is the value that you're providing.
And you said it's Toastmasters?
Toastmasters, yes. It's a lot bigger in the US than it is in the UK. But it's probably one of the best kept secrets in the public speaking world. It's completely free to attend for guests. There's no obligation to pay. It's a non-for-profit organization, so there's no one kind of cornering you to pay any money. And it's incredibly warm and collaborative space where people come together to improve their public speaking skills. And the beauty is that you get people from all walks of life. I mean, the clubs that I were part of, I met CEOs, I met business owners, I met people in the civil service, I met people with dentists, administration assistants, accountants, students, people who are retired, a lot. And the amazing thing is, because everyone's coming together for the same goal of improving their public speaking, even if the output is different, which may be stand-up comedy or a best man speech at a wedding or a business presentation, because everyone is there for that same goal, everyone's very unified, and it's a wonderfully warm space where you're encouraged to make mistakes and you're encouraged to fail, because no one is there to judge you or criticize you for it as well.
Yeah. Well, and I preached for 5 years. I mean, I stood in front of a congregation from time to time, and I also would go to juvenile detention centers, and I'd speak to the kids there. And children's church, I mean, I did that for years. So that's another thing, you know, my preaching, feel like I could get up in front of anybody. But Toastmasters, so you go and you join Toastmasters. Was that like the website you can go to?
Sure. So there's a central website, and then depending on where you live, there's probably smaller websites for the various clubs that exist.
Mm-hmm.
It's open entry, it's free to join. There typically isn't a registration required before you attend. You can simply do what I did and just show your head one day and say hello, and you'll definitely get at least one, if not a handful of people who come in and greet you and welcome you in. And you become part of a wonderful network. I've had the privilege of meeting Toastmasters from all across the world. I've had friends who came to my club in the UK but went on holiday to places like the Ukraine and Thailand and actually visited Toastmasters clubs there as well. It's an incredibly diverse network across the world, and once you're a member of one, you're a member of all Toastmasters groups. So it's a wonderful space. I'd highly recommend it to anyone who wants to improve their public speaking skills.
Wow, I'm gonna have to Google that and see if we have anything around here. I'm sure we do. I mean, I live 20 minutes from Austin, and Austin is like, I mean, it's the capital of Texas, so there's got to be something around here. Wow. So you have a lot of different networks that you could help people in whatever situation that they're in, whether it be public speaking or starting a business, whatever, what have you.
Completely. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be on several personal development journeys, be it in my career in sales or marketing, in my business, in public speaking. And along the way, I've met some wonderful people who have been able to support me. You know, as a coach, I've always employed the services of a coach. I've always had mentors. I've always had a peer group who I can work with. So I've got an incredibly diverse network of contacts, which I'm really, really grateful to have in my network for sure. I don't think any of these journeys can be done effectively and efficiently on our own. We always need people, friends, family, peer groups, coaches, mentors to help us along the way.
Is there anything that you feel makes you different than any other life coaches out there?
I think in terms of actual coaching, there's many coaches far more competent than me. I think where perhaps a lot of coaches do struggle is the business side of things. And I'm fortunate enough to be a salesman first before I became a coach, whereas most coaches follow the opposing journey. And what that allows me to do is increase the capacity for for people to be aware of my impact and to make an impact. that's it. And ultimately, aside from that, I am the best life coach for clients who are experiencing a journey similar to mine. uh, every life coach is an expert in their own journey, and every life coach is the best at helping clients who want to follow in a vein to them, and that I can say confidently. Aside from that, that's for other people, and that's for God to judge, not me.
I heard that. Yeah, I've found that, you have to kind of gel with someone in order to, to be successful. What, you might work out better for this group of people, and a different life coach works better for another group of people. It's just the way life is. We meet somebody and we either automatically like them or we don't, and that, that's just the way life is. So let me ask you, do you have a website?
There's one in production for me personally. If anyone is interested in reaching out, having a conversation, they can find me on Facebook or on LinkedIn. On both of those mediums, if they search for my name, which is Mohammed Khashoggi, Mohammed Kasujee, I'm sure they'll be able to find me fairly easily.
Okay. I'm also on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I think it's a better alternative to any of the other social medias because it's more real. At least it seems that way to me. I do get the occasional, I'm a SEO expert, or I can help you grow your business by there's scam artists everywhere. So you have to beware. But LinkedIn, I think you probably run across that a lot less. There's another one, if I could recommend, called Alignable. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's great. Go to Alignable. You can either network in your area or you can spread it out all over the world. And I've met some really incredible people there. There's no funny business that goes on this site. It's for networking. Actually met a gentleman that lives only 20 minutes from me who was on Broadway, and he wrote Broadway plays, and he was an author. He wrote music, and Barbara Streisand recorded one of his songs, and he's very respected, and connected with him and became friends. He's been on the show, but try it out, man. It's Alignable.
100%. I've never heard of it, but it sounds so interesting. I'm definitely going to check her out after this call.
Yeah, I think you could meet some really great people on there. But Facebook, website, LinkedIn, hopefully Alignable, and we can connect on there.
Certainly.
Now, what do you have, like an introductory offer that you give your clients?
Certainly. If anyone listening to this conversation feels like they're an impasse in their life, whether it be with their career, their business, or anything in between, feel free to reach out. I always like to give anyone who's interested in coaching an experience of coaching rather than sell them the concept of coaching.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be more than happy to provide a complimentary session for anyone who's interested to go into more detail about what their challenges are, and that'll do no problem at all.
Sometimes we just have to be reminded we have the answers, but we need to be drawn. It need to be drawn out of us at times, But I would have to say thank you for coming on the show and spending your time with me. And I look forward to your success, and I wish you all the success in the world. And take care of that wife of yours.
Certainly will do. Kyle, sir, thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm very, very grateful, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you.
Please do, man. Please do. I have to thank everybody out there too. If you happen by the channel and this is your first time, I hope you'll come back and hit that subscribe button. And for those of you who are my regulars, it's because of you I get to do this, and I'm forever grateful. Until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favourite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network